Hello and welcome to another edition of Storytelling on Orchard Street. I'm your host, Pete Salamita, and we're in the podcast studios of P&T Knitwear Bookstore, 180 Orchard Street. They have great selection of books for you to check out and maybe buy if you so desire. There's a cafe in the back. They serve nice drinks and little treats for you, and they have lots of events you should check out. My guest today is Suzanne Cope. She's a scholar and a narrative journalist and is the author of Women of War, The Italian Assassins, Spies, and Couriers Who Fought the Nazis on Dutton, published April 2025. And Power Hungry, Women of the Black Panther Party and Freedom Summer and Their Fight to Feed a Movement. Her work on themes of political and social change, feminism, food, and culture has appeared in the New York Times, The Atlantic, Los Angeles Review of Books, Food and Wine, BBC, Washington Post, Aeon, and others. She is a professor at New York University. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I got to tell you, I wish we worked it out so I got to read your book before because it really sounds fascinating.
Well, my job here is to make you want to go back and
That's
read
true.
it.
And make anybody who's listening or watching or whatever do the same, right?
Exactly.
So I usually like to set up, where my guests come from, what was their early life like, and, what drove them to become writers or whatever the art that they're doing to talk about. And, maybe what informed them to be the artists they are. So so I know you're Italian-American descent because that's where we met at the Italian-American Writers Association.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is that both parents?
No, just my mom's.
Okay.
Yeah, just my mom's side. So Cope, it's not very
No, I didn't think
Italian.
so. Yeah, right.
My mom's maiden name is Nalbone.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I married another half Italian.
Okay.
So our
The
kids,
Italian is strong.
exactly, our kids. One of them looks pretty Italian American. The
Okay.
other one takes after our English, German, Dutch.
Right.
Other half.
But you look kind of like, I guess, you're a little bit of a mix.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the Sicilians, they had people coming from all over. So you have people from all over Europe.
True.
And Africa.
Right.
Yeah.
So childhood, tell me, did you always have a love of writing and reading, or is this something that you developed? Or
Well, that's what's really interesting is that growing up, my family, they always saw me as the smart one. I was good at school. I was very diligent about my
My family
schoolwork.
never thought that about me. I'm one of 7 too.
Oh, wow. I'm an only child, but
Okay.
I was very close to my cousins, particularly on the Italian side. And I love to read. And I did write some stories when I was young. But, there's something about so much of the canon that you read in high school that I never knew that there were people who were alive or really very many women writers.
Right.
You read so many dead guys.
Yeah.
And so pretty much until college, I remember thinking, I never thought that I could be a writer. That just didn't seem like a job. And when I was in college, I remember we read this book that was on...
What did you study in college?
an English major, of
Oh,
course.
you were?
Yeah.
Right. But you just didn't think you could make money doing it?
Oh, well, I just assumed I would be a teacher,
Oh,
Right. I was like, what do you do?
Which you did become
Yes,
a professor.
but there was a roundabout way to getting there.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, I'll probably just be an English teacher.
Right.
That makes sense. But it's
college?
interesting. I went to SUNY Geneseo, a SUNY girl, and then I started in book publishing right after
I
undergrad.
forgot to ask you, where'd you grow up?
Western New York, south of Buffalo,
Okay.
right on Lake Erie. And actually, there was a fair number of Italian Americans there. A lot of Italians had helped work on the Erie Canal, and this was kind of the end of the Erie Canal.
Got it.
And so it was a pretty robust Italian American community. My mom, she helps run an Italian
Country Italians, huh?
yeah, an Italian festival every year,
Right.
and I had a great
Was
great
it pretty
hometown
country?
event. Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's right on the lake.
Nice.
And you feel like it's your ocean because you can watch the sunset over the
Wow.
lake because it's on the west.
Do you still have family ties up there?
Oh yeah, my entire family's there. I'm
Oh.
pretty much the only one who doesn't live there.
Right. Okay.
But they,
You must go occasionally to go. That's
Oh yeah,
to visit
a couple times a year.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So I grew up not knowing that I loved to read, but not really thinking that I could be a writer. And then when I started working in book publishing, I worked for Houghton Mifflin, which turned into Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, and then now is kind of broken up into pieces. But I worked in their adult publishing. So,
What'd you do?
I was actually in marketing.
Oh,
Yeah. So
okay.
I can write a good, marketing letter,
right.
press
Which
release,
is important
things
when
like
you're
that.
an artist.
It is very useful.
Because you do a lot of artists. Most people I know do a lot of their own, at least some
Exactly.
of their own marketing.
No, I've been, well, hey, I marketed myself to you.
That's
so
right.
There you go. And
Yeah.
here I am. But that was the first time I realized that there are living art authors and I too could be one. And
Right.
so I worked there for 7 years and decided after about 5 years that I thought I might want to go back for my MFA. But it was also it was the very late 90s, early 2000s when there was a lot of memoir coming out.
Okay.
And I found that, that wasn't really a very robust genre until that time period. And so I remember reading, for example, Angela's Ashes and just being,
that was
really,
a great book. I like that book.
being transported by that and saying,
Right.
you can have true stories that are just as interesting as novels.
Or more.
Or more, yeah.
Because your book sounds as interesting as it gets.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those things you couldn't
make
it up.
No.
Yeah. And so that was where I realized that maybe I do want to write. And so I went back and got my MFA in creative nonfiction. And I started teaching with that. I left my publishing job and I started teaching writing, teaching composition and creative writing. But I quickly realized that an MFA, well, a lot of times you used to be able to get a job with that. It's harder nowadays. I saw this as my career. I wanted to write and teach. I enjoyed teaching, and I went back and got my PhD. So I earned a PhD actually in a social science field called adult learning. And what it really taught me in regards to writing, it taught me social science research and how to interview people from the social science perspective and how to do this robust, document research. And so it's interesting. I have the narrative storytelling from the MFA
Right.
with the social science research background. And I say I'm a narrative journalist, but really my journalism background comes from this combination of these other two disciplines.
So you have two novels, but you wrote before that. Yeah, did you have books before these two novels?
They're from these two narrative nonfiction books. I did write one book that was I was interested in food studies. As soon as
Right.
I graduated from my my PhD, I heard about this interesting scholarly discipline around food, and of course, Italian Americans, we love food, and we love to think about food and how it relates.
I became a chef at 45.
Oh, see, you just
because I love to cook. I wanted to change a pace. I said, well, you're supposed to do something you really love.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't start at 45. That's why I discovered. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Days.
And my son was born a couple months after.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're setting yourself up.
Yeah, it was too much. Yeah.
So I was interested in food and how food related to our lives and our history and so I wrote a book called Small Batch that was looking at food through like our artisanal food, which was popular in the late aughts. And that was interesting, but it wasn't really, it wasn't really my passion. It was a nice way to hone my research skills, and I got to travel and do that. And then about 8-9 years ago now, there were a lot of protests erupting, and I saw people in the food world. They were, supporting immigrants by having, dinners where they were learning about people's lives and also raising funds, and they were sending money to or sending pizzas to protesters. And so I thought, what are these stories of food as a tool for social and political change?
Right.
And that was really interesting to me. So I came up, I researched a whole bunch of stories about that, and I had a book proposal set about that, about looking at 6 different movements throughout the last century. And one of those movements was, movements or time periods. One of them was World War II in Italy, and another one was the voting rights era in 1960s in the United States in the South. And so that book didn't sell. The feedback was, we want the American story.
Right.
So I turned that story, it was Alan Quinn's story, into my last book, Power Hungry.
Right.
And because this is so often the story, which we were chatting about earlier, about women, is that we don't always have these robust histories of the women. And so...
or the stories just weren't told.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
They're just not documented. So it's harder to find.
True.
And so I wasn't sure that I could tell an entire story the way I wanted to around Ellen Quinn. And so I paired her story with the Black Panther Party story, with this woman Cleo Silvers, who only recently passed. She was such a powerhouse, and she was so generous with her time and also her life of activism. And so I told that story of the Black independence movement, voting rights era, and then also what was happening with the Black Panther Party.
What's crazy is that, you know, the Black Panther movement really scared elements of white America and political in particular, and they had a problem with they were feeding people.
Exactly.
And well, that's actually kind of relevant to now.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
now that you mention it.
Yeah, and okay, whatever you know they were afraid of, they had a problem with that too.
Yeah. Well, there's this one.
That must be in your book.
Yes, and
Right.
there's this one amazing quote. I'm not going to do it justice about that. One of the things they were doing with their primary reason for the free breakfast program was to feed people because they were hungry.
Right.
But also they wanted to show that if we solicit food from the neighborhood, we have enough to feed our neighbors. And that they were very self-proclaimed socialists. And they're like, this is what socialism is.
Well, this country has plenty of food to feed everybody.
Exactly.
Really.
And that was their
we
point.
waste so much food.
And so they went around and they had people who went to the local bodega every Wednesday. They'd get a couple pounds of bacon and some eggs, and someone else would give them bread, and then that's what they would use to feed the kids. And this was truly a neighborhood initiative. And what they wanted to do was show that this could be done, this is the way the world should be.
Right.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they were going up against, racists and power. And power often doesn't want people to be happy and,
exactly.
you know.
They're like, oh, you expect food. Food is an expectation. It's not something you're going to pay for.
Right.
This was not.
But they wanted that society to break down.
Exactly. That's
right?
what the Panthers
If people are
wanted.
hungry, they can't survive. They can't, go to school or they can't, work. Or they can do those things, but they're not going to do it as well.
Yeah, and I've done I've written a couple articles and done some research, and this is my scholarly side. There have actually been studies of how hungry can you get keep a population without a riot.
Right.
Like, there's actual studies of keeping them right on this cusp of hunger, where you want them to be kind of incapacitated, but you don't want them to be so angry that they're going to.
That's kind of what I was kind of jabbing at. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really
it blows my mind,
interesting.
really.
I know.
Right.
I know. And so I'm still fascinated in food and culture. But as I was turning my eye towards the next story, I realized that really the story was around how women were using what power they could to lead, and in a world where they were, very underestimated and cast aside. And so that's really, I think, where my focus is now, of the stories that I'd like to tell.
Right. So we're going to talk mostly about the new book, Women of War. But just any final thoughts on the first book? Besides writing the book, did you discover things you didn't expect to? Or
Oh, so many. I mean, well, one thing, when I was realizing that the story of Aline Quinn, one of my protagonists, might not be enough to sustain the whole book, and my agent actually suggested looking, into the Black Panther Party more deeply, and I came across Cleo Silver's story, and I had all the same assumptions that so many people also have. The story that we think we know about the Black Panther Party, it was mostly men, it was mostly, militant. They were, I knew about the food program, but I didn't really think about it. And then as I did more research, I realized that this was just propaganda that was meant to vilify them. And so part of what my goal is to tell the true story, was to break down some of this propaganda, such as one interesting fact is that the Panthers were 2/3 to 3/4 women at any given time.
Wow,
And
I didn't know it was that much.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. And most of what they were doing, most of their focus was on survival programs, like, feeding people or organizing for rent strikes.
Who'd you go
like
to?
that.
When you did your research, who'd you talk to?
Well, I was trying to find a woman, a female Panther, who at the very beginning, and when you start to search,
Because I wonder, there might not be a lot of people that were around at that time in the Panthers.
they're in their 70s for the most part. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And so the main
Because they were pretty young.
Exactly. Yeah, they were in their teens or early 20s. They were quite young at the time. And so the main names that came up when you're looking for women Panthers, they've already been written about a lot. And they were mostly the partners. I mean, they were very much leaders in their own rights, but they were often the partners of other leaders. And I came across Cleo Silver's name in a couple places. And so I just reached out to her and she said, yeah, let's talk.
Right.
And she and I, luckily, I was able to meet her.
Was she surprised about your subject?
I don't know if she was surprised. She was very willing to talk. I mean, I think she saw, because she actually had a number. I was maybe the first, but she had a couple people around the same time really seeking to, to tell her the stories of the various things that she had been doing throughout her life. And so, to her, I bet she would say, I'm finally getting my due because I worked so hard my whole life.
What did she do the rest of her life after all that?
Well, she continued to do a lot of different efforts in food security, and she worked in community healthcare. She was part of the hospital takeover, that Lincoln Hospital, and that was in the early 1970s, I think. And then she moved around a little bit. She also did some union organizing, but she pretty much worked in activism or organizing for the rest of her life.
She's still vibrant?
I mean,
sounds like a vibrant person.
Oh, she was amazing. She died earlier this year.
Oh, sorry.
But she was a powerhouse.
Well, it's great that you got to talk to her.
Yeah. So I met her right before the pandemic. I traveled to spend some time with her in Memphis, where she was living. She lived in New York most of the.
Did you bring your books to?
I didn't. I almost did, but they're heavy.
Because I was just wondering, did I not mention that you should have something to read?
Oh no, I didn't. Yeah,
Well,
I know. I almost did.
Or we're just gonna have to talk.
Yeah, we can talk. I know. Maybe they have one out in the bookstore.
Well, they should.
I know
right.
because because I know they have some on order for sure. But
what did it feel like when you finished that book?
Well,
I mean, what's it like? Because I mean, I'm proud of my book, but I'm not going to lie. I mean, I felt like what I did is pales in comparison to what you do as far as how much effort how much time. So what's it like when you finally finish? Like how many years did it take to write it?
Well, you say what is finished. Is it the when I was finally done correcting all my end notes?
Right.
That was relief. But when I wrote the last part of the narrative, that was really exciting because I wanted it to end on this really powerful moment. And I remember that I finally figured out the scene that I wanted to end on. And I did a little research. There is not to give anything away, but it is in the final days of war. And one of my women, one of my protagonists is in Turin, Bianca, and she's, perhaps...
So we're moving to the new book.
She's perhaps about to be caught. This is Women of War. And and she's in a square, in a piazza. And so I was trying to describe the piazza, and I had been there, but I hadn't been paying attention because I didn't realize it would be a scene in the book. And so I went to my pictures, and then I looked that up online to see what that statue was, because I didn't remember the details. And once I realized what it was a statue of, it made so much sense to describe that, and it was very resonant of the moment because it was featuring women and a mother in the iconography on this statue. And so it was so powerful that I realized this final scene was going to come together in such a beautiful way that I ran downstairs to my husband. He was in the studio, and I was like, honey, can I read this to you? Do you like it? And that was very exciting.
Did you read parts of the book to him throughout or no?
Only if I kind of had a question about it.
Right.
Otherwise, he definitely, was watching the kids during some of the research. He drove me to an archive in the middle of nowhere.
Are the publishers of your two books the same?
No, they're different. Power Hungry was Chicago Review Press, and then Dutton, which is an imprint.
Was it easier for you to get the second book published because you had a track record?
I don't think in this day and age it's ever easier.
It's never easy.
Yeah. I mean, probably a little bit because I knew I could accomplish this, and it. To answer your question of a minute or so ago, that it took me maybe not quite 3 years. I did a lot of research, background research, because that's what you do with nonfiction books. You don't have to write the book ahead of time, but you have to have a really solid plan to sell it on.
Let's go back. Let's set up the book better.
Sure.
So,
yeah, let's do it.
So the book is called, Women of War, the Italian assassins, spies, and couriers who fought the Nazis. So first off, where did that idea for you come from?
So there was one woman in the book, Ada Gobetti, and she wrote a book that was published in English, and that is the only story of these women, any of these partisans in Italy.
But I mean, how'd you hear about her or this subject?
I was just researching it because I'm Italian American. I thought, okay.
So what was your thought process? I'm Italian American. You wanted to write something. So your previous book was about the Black movement.
Well, this story was part of that book proposal that didn't sell.
Oh,
and so I
that's
had
right.
originally thought
Right.
of food during these, times of change or tumult. And I came across Ada Gobetti's story because I thought, okay, the war in Italy, World War II in Italy, there's got to be a story there. And
Right.
so I did a bunch of research and I came across this woman, Ada Gobetti.
Okay.
And so when it was only going to be part of a larger book, a smaller part of a larger book, her story made sense in that plan. And it was really the only story written in English. And so
Do you read Italian?
I do now. I read it much better now.
Okay, because I guess you had to. Because I read in one of your interviews, you had to go to archives.
Yeah.
And I was wondering when I read your interview whether how much of it was in English.
Very little.
Right. So you had to read Italian.
Exactly. And so
Did you get help? Did you need help, or was this like did you have to ask a translator? Or you having problems with?
I studied Italian for a long time. I was not very good, but at least I had the basics.
Right.
And then when I really embarked on this research, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a lot better at Italian.
Right.
And I can read, close to fluent, like slower, certainly slower than English, but I can read pretty well. But I think now that your brain ages, the reading and the speaking and the listening, they don't all go together.
Right.
And so certainly I can't speak or listen as well as I can read. But I'm enough to talk with the archivists.
So you got a fellowship to go there, right?
NYU has a Florence campus, and so
We didn't talk about your job at NYU. Am I bouncing around too much?
Hey, it's your storytelling, so
Right.
people have to keep up.
Yeah.
I teach writing at NYU, and which is great.
Is there a focus?
I teach mostly a class called Writing as Inquiry, but I am going to teach a class in the spring around archival research.
Well, you're a pro now,
which is going to be fun.
and that's important.
I know. I'm so excited. I just took my class to the archives.
Was there something like that available at NYU before?
Not a specific class that I know of.
Right.
And I took my students just Thursday. I took them to the archives for a lesson, and
Archives
they don't
where?
even. We went to the Tamiment archive, Tamiment and Fales, the NYU archives. They have very robust archives. They have excellent archives. But I hope in this, and so they got to see what an archive is, and that is not just books
I've never seen an archive
or papers.
It's more than it's not just a regular library.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like boxes of stuff. And you might see, pictures or a scrapbook or, what I saw in my research. And it wasn't, a lot of times the archives, you don't know exactly what is going to be in the folder that you get in front of you in this box. And so I'm flipping through and I'm seeing flyers from the strikes that one of my women helped plan. And I found a handwritten notebook of what one of the protagonists, her boyfriend, fiance, was a partisan, and somebody kept track of what were the actions that they did in the mountains and who exactly were part of the partisan band. And so it was really amazing because you're touching the things that they touched, that they created, and you feel so connected to history. Yeah,
it's funny because we talked briefly outside before we came in here into the studio. When you think of World War II and you think of fascism, most of the stories really, I'm not a historian, and I should admit I'm not the most well-read person, but it always seems mostly to be from the German point of view.
Exactly. And I think, I don't believe, other than Ada Gobetti's diary that was written in English originally, that was one way that she kept it secret from the Germans and the Italian fascists. And maybe there's one other, diary that I know of that was written in English. There are no other popular, I'm putting this in scare quotes, not super scholarly books about this time period in English. And so I believe part of it is because there weren't really a lot of Americans around or British people. I mean, this is just mostly the Germans. This is the time when the Germans and the Italians were fighting. And Americans love to read about Americans, and who's writing about it if it's, if it's not about Americans there. And there are certainly, I talk about the Americans or the Allied forces, Americans and British and others who were fighting at the same time throughout Italy. But that's not the focus of the story.
Right. Well, I mean, we all, you'd have to have grown up under a rock if you don't know who Mussolini is and that element. But I guess I just happened to read a book of recent guests called The Red Door, and she does talk about the element of the Holocaust in Italy, which is something you also don't think about.
Exactly. I was like, was I not
Jewish
really...
Italians, I mean, it wasn't a big of a population, I would imagine, as Germany or Poland, but
still,
it existed.
Many thousands of people, yeah.
Did you come across that?
I did. And, one thing to tell listeners, so you don't feel bad like you missed something in history class however many years ago, is that we know this because especially Mussolini's name, I think, has been a little bit more, in the zeitgeist lately, just as we're thinking about the history of fascism. But of course, Italy was on, the wrong side of war. They were Axis members. Mussolini had been the fascist leader of Italy for over 20 years by the time my book starts in earnest, which, really most of the action is from 1943 to 1945.
Right.
And what happens in 1943 is finally the Italians never wanted to join war. Mussolini was increasingly unpopular.
Right.
He gets them into
war. They
war.
had a lot of economic strife, and
they were not prepared to go to war.
Right.
And Mussolini knew that. His advisors, who are otherwise yes men, they told him, they said, we're not ready. And so it put the country into a pretty bad depression. They didn't have enough to eat. They had really low rations. People were losing weight. People were working a lot. People were dying on these fronts for this war that they didn't care about.
Right.
And so,
I mean, can you imagine? I mean, you're what you're saying, and you're talking about history, but I always think about this, and we're kind of in a comfortable. I mean, I feel like I've been in a comfortable place in my life. And then when you read about these kind of things, it's just, I just can't wrap my head around it. Or you see what happens in countries where a war is fought and, lives are destroyed and cities are destroyed. And it's just hard to fathom, right?
I know. And this is...
And you saw in the archive, you must have seen like stories of what people were going through and the pain they were going through.
Exactly. And I think you have to have this level of maybe desperation or wanting something so radically different to do the things that these women and men
I was going to say, what led these four women to do what they did? Like, was there a specific event? Was there something happened to them personally or their family that would make them want to do what they did?
So broadly, in summer of 1943, the Americans, the Allies, Americans and British mostly, they finally attack Italy, and then they start to come up the mainland. And Italy realizes they need to get out of this war. And so they kick out Mussolini, they depose him, and then they put in this new, rather weak leader, Badoglio, and he's taking a very long time to negotiate his surrender to the Allies. 45 days, that's when all of these, these resistance people, they come out of the woodwork. They're like, what do we want our future to be? We're ready to.
What took them so long?
Mussolini had just created this culture of, you're going to be punished.
Right.
You're going to be maybe fed castor oil, or you're going to lose your job, or you're going to be sent to confinement. Yeah.
There were real life consequences.
Exactly. And
you have to be really desperate to take that leap.
Yeah.
Which we might see here. So
yeah.
I hate to say it.
I mean, I know. And you think about what pushes people to this, because it is amazing. These people were willing to risk their lives. And so after that, what ended at the 45 days is that the...
Dumb question. What kind of women were they?
Well, I'll tell you in a second.
Okay.
So,
they're just average women.
They're young. They're idealists. Right. Yeah. So what happens
when you say young, like how young are you talking?
Early 20s.
Okay. Yeah. That's really young.
So when they announce that they are now, allied with the Allies, they have totally surrendered. Germany said, well, guess what we've been doing the last 45 days? We have occupied your country.
Right.
And so now the Allies were not in most of the country. They were still coming up from the south. And Germany partnered with the fascists
Right.
were now in charge. And
Yeah.
so they were tyrannical. They were horrific. And
I
this
bet.
is where I'm
Because they had
talking-
no love lost. They were bad enough in their own country.
Exactly.
But there was nobody like them there. They couldn't care.
And now
right?
they're pissed.
Was that
because
part of it?
They're pissed because
Yeah.
Italy just left the Axis powers.
Right.
And
God, what a place to be in.
no, it's horrific. So people are looking around and they're terrified. They're stealing men off the street and sending them to Germany to just work in their factories. This is when Italy did not ever they did have racial laws that were similar to Germany's, but they did not ever deport anyone or any Jewish people or round them up until the Germans were in Italy.
Right.
And so, enough people sounded the alarm early on that many Jewish people in Italy were able to hide. And so, they did not have the losses that they would have otherwise had, but certainly many people died.
Right.
And so this was the climate where people who very briefly were starting to organize during these 45 days pushed back underground, but now at least they had a moment to organize. And now you have this army, partisan army in the mountains and underground.
I loved your when I did the research for you as a guest. You went. You said you went on a hike and that they would have had to do, and you went on a train ride that goes through the mountains because people don't really always think about mountains in Italy.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's a very mountainous country.
So that's part of. Besides going to the archives, you also.
I wanted
put your foot on the ground.
Follow in their footsteps as much as I could.
Right.
And so I really was able to I took technically 4 trips in total doing research for this book. And
by yourself, or did you have company?
2 out of the 4 were by myself. One, I went out there for a couple weeks by myself, and then my family joined me.
Nice.
And then my husband had to return back. This was when I was stationed. I was at NYU Florence. And I had an office there, and I had research support, but I did a bunch of day trips.
This must have been really exciting for you.
It was exciting. It was great.
Right.
I did a bunch of trips.
Did you feel like you arrived as a writer and a professional by doing that?
I was thinking like this is really exciting.
Yeah,
and,
it has to be.
And I'm like, this is the kind of work I love.
How
to
are
do.
you going to top that?
Yeah. Well, I'm working on it. I'm
Yes.
getting excited about the next
Okay.
project. But I did a couple overnight trips before my family arrived, and then my family came, and then this is when I had my husband drive us to the middle of nowhere to find this archive museum that has it's called like the Diary Museum, so it keeps testimonies of kind of everyday people, both
Right.
famous and not famous people.
Where did they get all that? How
They
did
they
find
just
all that?
had this initiative, and it's this tiny town in the middle of nowhere. I couldn't have taken a train there. Trains do not go to this town.
Right.
And I could hear my kids
But how'd you know
playing
about it?
because I knew, I researched, I knew that
Right.
this archive museum, or
Okay.
it was an archive, it wasn't a museum. And so you can go and you can request and read through a handwritten testimony. And it was for one of my women, Anita Malavasi. And
Were the 4 women connected at all, or they completely separate?
yeah, they were completely separate. So I chose them because they are from 4 different places.
Right.
And they also did, they did some overlap activities, but they were not.
You think they knew about each other? No.
I would say afterwards,
Right.
3 out of the 4 of them became relatively well known.
Right.
2 were in government.
Right.
Anita Malavasi was probably the least well known, but she might have been better known in her region, which was Emilia Romagna, which is close to Bologna. And she was more of a community.
Is this your first time to
organizer.
Italy?
No, I had gone before.
Okay.
Yeah, a number of times. But I haven't gone to Sicily yet, so I'm planning
Yeah, that
that
has
for
to be
next
next.
year.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about mafia women before.
Exactly.
Maybe
Exactly.
a possible subject.
I just had
That's
to
a
be
good reason to
careful.
go to
Have to
Sicily.
be careful who I'm asking questions
That's true.
about.
Yeah.
But I find that as long as you're asking about the past, then
True.
it keeps
Right.
it
It's
kind of
okay.
arm's
Yeah.
length.
Matter of fact, they might want to talk.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Everyone has stories to tell, right?
True.
Yeah. So these 4 women, they each had their own story of the moment that they realized that they wanted to do something. They wanted to help create change, because 3 out of the 4 of them, they were brought up, from a family that was probably leaning anti-fascist. One woman, Teresa Mattei, her father was
expressly anti-fascist. Like he was monitored by the government. They knew that he was friends with the Roselli brothers and the Olivettis, and so he was pretty well known as being a rabble rouser, and he brought up his children that way. But the other three, their parents, they know as they were telling their stories much later in their life, their parents were kind of subtly anti-fascist. They didn't send them to the fascist children's camp that it kind of indoctrinated them. They one family homeschooled their kids as long as they could just to keep them away from the fascist ideology. But they never taught them because it was so dangerous. If you have a young kid being like, "Oh, my mom said that, Mussolini's a bad guy," you could be arrested. Who knows what could happen to you? And so it wasn't until later that they kind of put it together that their parents were kind of prepping them to think this way.
Do you think about when you were doing this book, or now after it's been published, how different it is now because there's social media and information is so much easier to get, because the women that you are writing about in this whole movement, it had to be in secrecy to find out information.
Yeah.
And the general population doesn't know, generally speaking. They know what's going on from their point of view, like, not having things they're used to having, or maybe they see German soldiers, on the ground, in their hometown.
Yeah. Well, I wrote this article recently a couple months ago for Foreign Policy magazine, and I was making the case for how important it was for these underground newspapers. One of my protagonists, Bianca,
which would be one way for word to get
exactly.
around, but you're taking a chance even doing that.
Oh, for sure. She could have been arrested, killed on the spot. And so she would help write these newspapers and then print them, which was very dangerous because it was loud.
Can you imagine the passion it takes to do that?
Exactly. I mean, there were so many close calls that I write about in the book that they write about, or talked about in the testimonies. And so I was trying to equate in this article about what's the equivalent of the underground magazines today or underground newspapers today. And I talked to an expert in communications, and he was saying, there's not this perfect, parallel, because there is so much information.
But it's all over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So is it the
same? And things like a lot of social media, but a lot of social media is highly looked at.
Yeah.
So it's not underground, and you can get in trouble, especially now, because, there have been people from other countries that have come here and have been refused entry because of their social media.
Well, I'm seeing
what would be underground now? Is there an underground?
Underground newspaper might be a small contingent of journalists who are trying to tell their truth, but without the influence of, being told by an editor who might, be hired by a billionaire. So they feel the freedom to tell the story, and they have the expertise to tell the story and or the access to tell a particular story. That is probably the closest, but they're probably also telling the story on social media.
Right.
So
it's kind of a mind bend, because I was just thinking, all right, we have all this and we can find out almost, like, you can see like ICE arrests taking place, right? But then now more and more AI is being popped up. Yeah. So now you don't even know if what you're looking at is really happening or not. Or,
even from when I was researching this article, AI has become even worse of an issue of being like, what is true and what can I trust?
Right. So crazy.
Absolutely.
Right. So we have access to everything, and we don't know if it's real. It's like, or we don't know if we're being watched. Yeah. Or we don't know who knows we're doing it, because it's.
No, absolutely. Maybe books are the truest truth, because you have an editor, you have these detailed notes that you can check.
Right. You can prove that you
can't
reprint source
1,000, 10,000 books. Right. It is the same. Maybe I think books are.
What did you learn besides learning about these four women? What was your biggest takeaway? From this?
There was a moment a couple months ago where I felt, probably like a lot of people, I'm like, what do I do? I just felt like I wanted to do something and I didn't know what to do. And I thought, okay, Cope, you just wrote a book,
right?
Actually 2 books about people who, started a movement from nothing.
Right.
I mean, these women, they had no one telling them what to do. And so what did they do? It was really one foot in front of another. It was really doing the first thing that maybe led to the second thing.
So maybe small things do matter, because
Absolutely.
we think we have to do big things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
And also
just like the women from your first book that fed people.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And the Anita Malavasi, the first thing that she did was brought salt. Someone said, "Oh, could you just bring me salt?" And that was her.
You know, did you read the book Salt?
I did a long time ago. I mean, it's amazing.
We take it for granted, but salt's like such a key thing.
Exactly. And so that led her to bringing food and bringing.
So a grain of salt.
Yeah.
You know, don't take it with a grain of salt. Is that what that means? I don't know. but that shows little things are so important.
Exactly.
Salt is like we need it to live,
And
it makes our food taste better.
Yeah. A lot of times people they discount this care, you know, like the feeding of people or making sure someone has a warm, you know, sweater or socks. And that is actually so important. I noted in the back of my book that a statistic that there were 15 people supporting every armed partisan. So the partisan bands, that was the army, that this underground army, that were basically, they were fighting the Nazis alongside the Allies, not right next to them, but they were both had a similar, they were coordinating often, and they had a similar goal of making their lives very difficult. But it took 15 support people to support every individual partisan. And I thought, okay.
Like, give me an example.
Like bringing salt or bringing food or procuring
clothes.
Yeah. So this
medicine,
bringing messages, coordinating
messages,
between them, bringing them guns. They didn't have enough guns for every person. And so all of my women would bring guns from one action to another to make sure that they could defend themselves or be on the offensive. And so, yeah, you need this support system. The army would not operate without them, because what was happening, these women were so underestimated. They were the only ones who could really, travel.
Well, women had in this country had a big impact on World War II too, because they stayed behind. They kept factories going.
Exactly. Yeah.
They kept the foundation largely because so many young men were taken away.
So
they were taking roles.
In Italy. Yeah. They were doing.
So
the
we
same
weren't
thing.
on the front line, but they weren't on the front line, but they were contributing in big ways.
Except some were on the front line.
Well, yeah, right. But I mean, even not being on the front line, you can make a difference.
Exactly.
Right.
And everything would have ground to a halt without them.
Right.
And so it was the same thing, but these women were doing all these other things that could have gotten them arrested or killed under this horrific fascist tyranny of the Nazis and the Italian fascists. So it was pretty dire.
So you wrote, your two books have connections, women doing big things and not given credit for. Before those books, though, did you think a lot about? I think a woman of your life, what you've accomplished and what you've done. Feminism has had to come up and have a play. But did you think of it like you were going to set out to make that an issue for you?
I've always been a feminist, I guess. And my grandmother, my nanny, my Italian American grandmother, she was technically born in the United States, and then she moved back to Italy as a child, and then moved back to the United States later. But I realized early in this process of writing this book that she was the exact same age as these women.
Is she still alive?
No.
Oh, okay.
And
when
she died.
Pass?
She died when I was in high school, a long time ago. And I just think of everything she taught me. I mean, she used to tell me that I would be the first woman president. We're still waiting.
Right.
And
you're young enough.
Technically, but I think that ship has sailed.
Right.
But it's amazing.
I mean, who would want that job, though?
Oh, not anymore. But she really, I see everything that she was, preparing me for and teaching me. And, in fact, I've written in an essay about this, how I see her vision of feminism was impacted by her youth in Italy.
And what was her vision?
I mean, she just always told her granddaughters and my mom, her daughter, have your own money. Have your own career, be your own person. Don't turn, even though ironically in the Italian American household, the women are still doing all the cleaning and the cooking, right? But she also was totally her own woman.
Right.
And when she died, she left money to all of her grandchildren that was completely separate from my grandfather, who still lived another 20 years.
Oh,
yeah.
Look at that.
And she ran the office. My grandparents owned owned a flight school. Actually, my grandfather, also Italian American, and he learned to fly before the war, and he taught flying in the war. He was a flight instructor during the war.
Okay, so they had connection to World War II.
Yeah. And he was offered. They were saying, "Oh, do you want to go see some action at the end of the war?" And he's like,
"No, thanks.
No, why would I want to do that?"
Right.
And so I think really that if she had stayed in Italy, even though she wasn't in the exact right part, I could imagine her being alongside these women. This was exactly who she was. And
so she was a role model for you.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Right. And your mom's probably going to listen to this, so you have to say she was a role model for you in feminism too.
Of course, it's like three.
I mean, is she going to listen? Does she follow your
Of course she does.
Your media? Because it's not your first bit of media that you've done for the book.
No, my mom's my biggest fan,
Right.
And the fourth generation just waved to me through the podcast window. So my daughter and husband are here.
Great, and you're going to go out to dinner.
Yes. We
Take
will.
advantage of being on the Lower East Side.
I know. It's only a few short miles away from my home in Bed-Stuy, but
Right.
it's always that's the great thing about New York.
Maybe you should
right?
walk to Little Italy.
I know.
We're talking about Italy so much here.
I know. That's why. We'll find a good spot.
This means nothing to this story, but I have to tell you, I worked for a record label in the 80s, mid 80s, and it went out of business. I jumped ship before I knew it was going to go out of business. But two of the guys that I worked with, they were in California, started a record label. And they put out the first Jane's Addiction. Remember that band?
Of course.
They put their first EP out before the big hits.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going to be in New York City to do some showcases, right? And I met up with them, and we went to Little Italy. And this is why I'm telling the story, because I don't know why this popped into my head. We went to Puglia's. You know that place? It's like real tourist Italian, Little Italy Italian restaurant. And this is the 80s, and I don't know if you remember what they looked like, but they had, Perry Farrell had the cornrows, not the cornrows, the dreads, and they were tattooed, and
Probably had those like glasses on even at night.
Yeah, and they had tattoos and piercings, and no one had that back then, right? It was before the craze in the 90s, and boy, the restaurant didn't know what to make of us at all. We got the weirdest looks. I'm sorry I went into this, but I just thought of Little Italy, and sorry. Let's get back on track.
Back on track. Back to Italy. Yeah.
Right. But your family must be really excited about this book.
They are. Yeah. I mean, to tell these stories and
I mean, it's a great story, but the family connection, the Italian heritage must make it a little extra. Right?
To realize how it connects, even in a one degree of separation from the ancestor stories. And then what's been great, I've been talking to different groups of people who have a connection to Italy during the war. Either their ancestors were there, or even if they were Italian, or sometimes their father or grandfather was stationed in the war, and they never knew any stories of what he went through while they were there. And he would, I've heard from multiple people telling me that, they talked about these townspeople who helped him, and he escaped this, and these wonderful people in the countryside helped him survive, and they had no sense of what the war was like for Italians. And so I love that the story is helping them connect to that history too. I mean, really, the fact that this has not been written about in English yet, it really, really blows my mind.
Okay, here's a good question. Is it going to be translated to Italian?
I can't believe that these rights haven't been sold yet. So I can't believe. And it's also, I mean, I dare say it is very cinematic. It was called by Kirkus Reviews a book that should be turned into a movie.
Wow, you beat me to it. I was just going to say, I was waiting to say that.
I mean,
or like an 8-part documentary.
That's what I see. So it hasn't. Nowadays, they don't.
Are you going to try to make that happen?
Well, it has a shopping agreement.
Okay.
So if there's anyone
mean?
out there who wants to, there's some people who are shopping it around. We've signed something, so they want to make it into a show. They actually are interested in a TV series, but they need partners to do it. And so it's an agreement that they're going to search for partners. And,
who's they?
I mean, it's two individuals. One woman actually.
Is it through your publisher?
They found me, and then my agent, created this shopping agreement. But one woman, her, was it her parents or it must be her grandparents, both of her grandfathers were partisans, and I think her grandmother. So she's Italian.
Okay.
And now
So this connects.
Exactly.
Right.
And then there's a British woman as well. And so they're interested in helping to tell this story. So
I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's we're talking about 80 years ago?
yeah, it was just the 80th
Right.
anniversary of the end of World War II.
Right.
this year.
But World War II still holds a fascination for
I
people,
know.
doesn't it?
I know.
Right.
I know, it's amazing.
Right. And this is an angle that has never been done before.
Yeah.
Right.
So everyone should
Right. And
check it out.
we're talking
Read
about
it.
fascism a lot these days.
And these women
So-
they were shooting fascists. They were bombing them. I mean, they were so brave.
Right.
These stories are really unbelievable. And
They
so
were warriors.
a little bit about my research, because I was able to tell it in this very, almost novelistic way, but nothing is made up. Every single detail is true.
Right.
But because these women were also chosen because they left behind these great testimonies. And so two women wrote memoirs, and so they're actively in their memoirs talking about how they felt or what they saw. And then as we mentioned earlier, Rome is easy to follow in the footsteps of Carla Capone, is the woman who was from Rome, because Rome looks the same, you
Right.
know? And so I really could follow and see. There's one bombing she took part in where there's still evidence of it on the walls.
Right.
And then Anita Malavasi.
Did you take pictures?
Of course, I took a million
Right.
pictures.
Okay.
yeah.
Let's say this. Is there a social media online best place for people to meet to see what you've done? And
Sure. If
Yeah.
you go to Instagram,
so they can find these pictures?
yeah, Suzanne Cope _PhD. When my last research trip was a year and a half ago, because of the way books come out. But that was a really great trip because the book was almost done. and
You
I
made
was
one
just-
more-
I was like filling in these
Right.
holes.
Okay.
And so I did this whirlwind trip to, all the cities where these women were. And that was mostly my goal. I did have to visit some archives to find some last info, but mostly I wanted to walk in their footsteps.
Right.
And,
So it sounds like your third book might be kind of along the same lines. Do you ever think about doing a fiction book, a novel?
Historical fiction has been nagging at me
Uh-huh.
because of all the ways that there are archived silences around women. If we don't have their stories, if we can't tell them because they are not there, then can I learn enough and kind of piece together what we do know about a couple different people and put it together into one person's story and make it a narrative where we feel like we could understand how these women lived and what their lives were like.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm playing around with that. Although my heart still lies with nonfiction, and I have a work percolating, is sitting with my agent. I just sent it off to her about a week ago, and so I hope to hear her thoughts on my revisions.
Right.
And it's very resonant to today. It's based mostly in New York City, which would be fun to get to know my city even better.
Yeah, sure.
And 1930s, not a prequel to Women of War, but it is setting us up for World War II in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
and there's a lot of badass women and some bad guys.
So for this book, you were able to, through your job, take time off and do research.
Well, I could only go during the summer when I'm not teaching.
Oh, okay,
yes,
that makes sense.
which,
I was going to ask you how it must be difficult. So you have to do most of your writing in your like a summer.
I mean, if you talk to my family, they would tell you that, especially when I'm in the midst of writing, which I'm almost always writing something.
Right.
I'm always the first one up, getting a little bit of work done.
Right.
In the wee hours of morning.
When's your class?
They change every semester. Right
Okay.
now, it's nice. I teach in the afternoon, so
You can use your morning.
exactly. Yeah.
Is that the best time for you as a writer?
Oh yeah, I wake up and
Right.
I just want to
When
get
things are more
at it.
quiet and you have energy.
Exactly.
Do you do yoga first?
No, I have to jump. My best writing is when I can jump right into it and have.
So you get right out of bed,
Yeah.
just go to it.
Well, you
You
gotta
make coffee first.
I got to make my espresso.
Espresso,
yes.
okay.
And then I can get at it. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And I can get a lot done. It's amazing what I could get done.
I guess you have a nice office or.
Yeah, I mean, I live in New York, so
Right.
I don't have that much space.
Right. It's like the size of this room, a little less.
No, much smaller.
Smaller.
No,
right.
it's like a nook in my bedroom.
Oh.
But if I'm on Zoom, you only see my plants and
Right.
some artwork, so it looks.
So
more
it's in your
spacious.
bedroom. Then do you wake your husband?
Well,
up
I'm
when you're doing your research?
downstairs
Oh.
until the family wakes up. And
Oh,
then
okay.
and then I have to get the kids off to school,
Right.
and then I get back to work.
Does
yeah.
your 12-year-old help with the 6-year-old?
Oh, he's wonderful. Yes.
Okay. Oh, boy and the
Yeah,
young
boy
one's
and a girl. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Rocco and Lucian.
All right.
Yeah. And
My sister's husband, his name is Rocco.
oh, nice. You don't see that.
He's
often.
Italian, from Italy. Yeah.
Well, what was great about that name? It was my husband's father's middle name, but he didn't know because he'd be over 100 now. He was older, and when he came, he was born here, but he told everyone his middle name was Robert because Italians were, looked down upon at the time.
Right. Yeah.
And my husband didn't know his middle name was Rocco until he died and saw it on his birth certificate.
Right.
And so we wanted to reclaim that name. And then Lucian, I just like the name Lucian, but her middle name's Assunta, which was my grandmother's name.
One of the characters in the book I was telling you about for the immigrants, I've got it. Immigrant Heart is what it's called. Kathy's book.
Is Assunta?
There's an Assunta in the book.
I mean, you can't go naming a kid Assunta, you know. So,
it's a tough one.
Yeah. So her middle name's Assunta, and then her
especially
name,
if it's abbreviated.
Yeah. And so my grandmother was named Assunta, but then she changed her name to Susan, which is the typical, translation, American translation. And then I'm named after her. Suzanne.
Are either of your kids interested either in your husband? You said is a musician and you're a writer. Do they go between either of those things?
They're both very verbose. They love words, and certainly the big kid has gotten into music lately. And he also loves.
Does he play an instrument?
He plays trumpet and drums.
Nice.
At the
Well,
moment.
I was a drummer.
Yeah, and the little one plays violin.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
And they're both interested in learning more Italian. And
Is there a family band? Do you play anything?
no.
Can you sing?
And, only around the campfire.
So we're getting kind of towards the end. What haven't we talked about that's important to your story?
Oh, let me just tell you about these 4 women, and then you folks will be intrigued. They wanna go and.
Where can they can find the book anywhere?
Absolutely anywhere. Bianca and Carla and Teresa and Anita, and they're from all around Italy, and it's just it's going to transport you to these places, and I hope you'll be inspired as I was, because as
it's widely distributed, though.
Of course, yeah. Any bookstore hopefully still has it in stock. If not, they'll order it for you online. But I really fell in love with these women. I think they were so young when they were doing this, and I want they inspire me to just want, like, what is it going to take?
Do you have any
to risk everything to really fight for something you believe in?
I know it's like I said, man, it takes courage.
Yeah.
Do you think you have to be that young to have that kind of courage?
I think you need to be idealistic, and a lot of times young people are idealistic. It's the same thing with power hungry. The Black Panthers were almost exclusively teens and early 20s, and they really truly believed that change was going to happen. And I think you get jaded as you get older,
Right.
But their idealism just inspires me, and
but I don't know if this is a nice thing to say, but maybe there's less to lose.
Maybe,
I mean, you got a house and a family and kids, and you got responsibilities. Maybe it's a little harder to.
I think about even what
not to say older people aren't activists. But
and there's plenty. But I think, I can't get arrested right now. That would really be detrimental, not just to myself, but
to your family.
Yeah,
right.
But then that makes you think too. I don't know. Should anyone be risking more? I mean, it's hard to say, which is what makes me go back to what we were saying about if what you can do is support those who are on the front line, then that is super
That's
useful.
Your part.
Yeah. And we need many of those people. And so don't feel like, I'm not doing enough. It's like, if that's what you can do, then do that.
Right.
And
you can write about it, and you can talk about it, and
exactly.
you can put it out there
and witness it and learn about it. Another element is political education that was important both with Power Hungry, those groups, and also with the partisans. And I think just learning more about this history and understanding what you want to fight for and what this history is also a really important part of this.
Right.
Yeah.
So I hope you don't mind, but I have to plug myself too.
Of course.
So I have a new book out. It's called From Here to Institutionalized, and it's on this way. It's on Storytelling on Orchard Street Press. So it's.
And I saw it. It's gorgeous. It has photos.
It's a book of poetry,
it's
and
beautiful.
We're doing a book launch at Young Ethel's in Brooklyn, Park Slope, Brooklyn, on November 22nd. From 3 to 6, and there's I have like some of the best local poets and musicians that are good friends of mine. It's going to be a great time, and the host Shane, who's a comedian, is showing a 5-minute short film him and his brother did. So it's going to be true variety show, and it's all related to, most of it's related to my book. It's been great talking to you.
It's been so much fun.
Like I said, I wish I had read your book before I met you, but I'm definitely going to read it.
Excellent.
It sounds great, and you were an excellent guest. And we got to stay in touch
Of course.
because I want to know what your next book is going to be.
I know.
And are you going to do a reading at the Italian American Writers Association? You should do a reading. You should do a feature.
I have something on Thursday, November 14th. I don't know when this is coming out. It will be out before then, but it's very soon.
Maybe not. Oh, you're the feature next week?
Not at Iowa. I do want to do that. The Italian American Writers Association. Yes, I need to bug them. They're actually.
I'll put a plug in for you.
Oh, fabulous!
Because Kathy Curto
yes.
was on this program.
Oh, great.
And she's actually going to read at my variety show in January.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So
Great.
I'll put a good word in for you.
Well, maybe,
I'm going to send a link to this.
And maybe husband and wife, we could do a 1-2 duo at a future variety show.
Well, I would love that.
That would be fun.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, my guest has been Suzanne Cope. She's a scholar and a narrative journalist, and she's written 2 books that I want to read, and I suggest you all read them. Again, it's Power Hungry Women of the Black Panther Party and Freedom's Summer and Their Fight to Feed a Movement. Your book titles are very long.
Yes, you got to fit a lot of info.
There's a lot
in there.
to say. Women of War, the Italian assassins, spies, and couriers who fought the Nazis on Dutton. And it was just published this year, and it's fresh off the press. So everybody go out and check it out. And thank you again, Suzanne.
Thank you.